This is the story on the infamous serial killer, Joseph Douglas Ball, also known as the Alligator Man. Joe Ball was born on January 7th, 1896 and was born in Elmendorf, Texas. Although much isn't known about Joe's childhood, from what we do know from his close relatives, Joe was a very closed off, shy person growing up. He preferred being alone rather than being more social with the kids of his age. Joe took a liking to guns and found it to be one of his only passions throughout his childhood. Yeah, like Joe was really big on guns. Like every day, like I said, usual kids, they would go outside, you go to the park, you do this, you do that. Joe, nah. Joe, he would go outside every day and he would just shoot guns. And he would practice over and over and over and over and over until he mastered it. Joe's passion for guns actually led to him enlisting into the war against the US versus Germany. Joe ended up staying for 2 years, and that ultimately led to some trauma for Joe. After he got released, his dad offered Joe a job for him to adapt back to society. Meanwhile, his dad is very wealthy due to him starting businesses in his younger years. But after a while, Joe just wanted to do his own thing. Joe decided that he wanted to open a bar, and this bar happened to be named Societable Inn. But there was a twist to this bar that contributed to Joe's success. There were live alligators that people could be watched fed animals like cats and dogs by Joe, but with a small fee. But it was said that not everyone liked Joe. A neighbor complained about the smell of rotten meat, and Joe wasn't having none of that and held him at gunpoint for it. But not only that, the handyman of Joe, Cliff Wheeler, lived in fear because whenever Joe would get drunk, just to ease his mind, Joe would shoot at the handyman's feet and make him dance. Now we can move on to the murders. The wives and waitresses of Joe in the bar would suddenly start to go missing. But behind the scenes, Joe would take these women to secluded areas and shoot them in their face and then dispose of their bodies by feeding them to the alligators. But Joe's story to cover up all these disappearances while being questioned by police was that first, victim 1, Minnie Godhart, left, and I quote, "She left to go to another job." And victim 2, Julia Turner, and I quote, "Turner got into an argument with her roommate and she was anxious to leave, so I gave her $500 for the trip." 2 more waitresses went missing for reasons that really didn't make any sense. This started to raise a lot of questions for investigators, but they didn't have any concrete evidence to do anything about it until the handyman of Joe was pressured and broke down completely and spilled all the beans while being interrogated about what Joe was doing. And since this finally gave police something to work with, they decided that they wanted to question Joe and take him to trial about all of this. So they went to Joe's bar to confront him while he was there and started to question him, notifying him that it was time to take him down for all of his wrongdoings. Joe opened the register, pulled a pistol out, and but no, it wasn't actually in his head, it was actually in his heart, and that one bullet ultimately resulted in his demise. That one bullet killed Joe on the spot. But the handyman did indeed go to prison for a few years for being an accessory to the crime. And every alligator that Joe had got donated to the San Antonio Zoo. That was the story of Joe Ball.